From Variety, celebrating more than 119 years covering the business of entertainment, this is the Award Circuit Podcast. It's been another busy year for Ramy Youssef, who's behind the animated series #1 Happy Family USA and stars in the HBO film Mountainhead. But his next production might be something a bit more personal.
If we have a baby, could we do a podcast? Because I won't do any project. Could we just have a podcast where I talk to you about my baby? Could we just do an FYC for my baby? And there'll be no project. It won't be attached to a project because I'll just be home with my wife and the baby.
I'm Michael Schneider, and on this bonus episode of the Variety Award Circuit Podcast, we talk to comedian Ramy Youssef about his hefty slate of projects. Later in the episode, we catch up with Godfather of Harlem star Forest Whitaker. It's all next on this edition of the Variety Award Circuit Podcast. Stay close. Ramy Youssef seems to have a banner year every year. The last time he appeared on the Award Circuit Podcast, he was promoting his HBO stand-up special More Feelings and his hosting stint on Saturday Night Live, having just come off a press campaign for his first movie role in Poor Things. Plus, Netflix had just sent a comedy series co-created by Youssef and Will Ferrell. This time around, he's outdone himself with 4 projects to promote simultaneously. His animated Amazon Prime Video series, #1 Happy Family USA, the second and final season of Netflix's Mo, which he co-created with Mo Amer, his guest appearance in the studio on Apple TV+, and his role in Jesse Armstrong's HBO movie Mountainhead. That film examines the complicated and even violent relationships between a group of tech billionaires who are wading through real-life apocalyptic consequences of AI.
There he is!
Look at you, richest guy in the world.
Yeah, but have you seen what your net worth is doing?
Oh! Yeah.
Your platform is
Racist and shitty.
Oh!
Let's go to commercial. 4 presidents of tech here on Mount Tech Board.
You guys getting this? Panic buying and violence?
This is a serious moment. I think that is why I am so excited about these atrocities. I'm thinking about all of the people who are not killing each other.
On this bonus episode of the Variety Award Circuit Podcast, Variety's Salome Hailu met up with Youssef to talk about the idea behind #1 Happy Family USA, as well as the decision not to reference the current war in Gaza on Season 2 of Mo, and what drew him to Mountainhead and working with Jesse Armstrong. They began with Youssef noting that he came to Mountainhead as a fan of Armstrong's work, even before Succession.
I think in high school, it was cool if you knew about Peep Show. We downloaded it illegally.
Yeah.
It was kind of our, I know about, that whole I know a band you don't know.
Yeah,
I know a show you don't know. Yeah.
Tell me how this came to you. When did you first get to meet Jesse, and how did he pitch this character to you?
The project basically was just one of those things where it was, hey, would you want to have a call with Jesse Armstrong? He's working on a movie and one of those, I don't even remember letting them finish the sentence and just saying, yes, I don't care what it is. I'll be there. And we actually first started just talking about it as he was writing it, because he did everything really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think from the beginning, he was kind of unsure as to what, and it took me a while to understand what he was doing, but he knew the film was about these 4 guys, and I think he was trying to figure out the recipe of who was actually going to play them. And there was this thing of, okay, if this person's playing this person, then now I have to kind of shift over who's going to do these other roles, right? And so I didn't even know what I was talking to him about. I just felt like we were having this conversation for me where I could say at least, hey man, I'm so inspired by what you do, the way you build character, and the way that you have these dramatic storylines that are somehow the funniest thing on TV. Just heaps and heaps and heaps of praise. From a place of, yeah, it'd be great to work with you, but also, man, it just, it's exciting to get to tell someone that, And then he had me read for a few different roles with him, and then I got this role of Jeff. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting that you read for multiple. So
I did, yeah.
So Jeff is this kind of hot young billionaire on the come up. His net worth is rising and rising in real time through the movie, as he loves to emphasize, who's making his money with content moderation and trying to take the bad stuff off the internet. But tell me about the other roles. Which ones were you also up for?
It was one of those things where it's he had these scenes, and so you're just kind of looking at them and reading them. And I think I had read some super things, and I could tell that it was all happening really quick. And now that I know about how the film happened, I think he wanted it to come out in a timely fashion because of what we're talking about and what it covers. So I think I had read some super stuff, which then it was just funny showing up and seeing Jason Schwartzman, who's so perfect for the role. Everyone's really perfect for the role. I mean, it was such a dynamite from the first day, getting to just watching the way they designed it, everyone pressing each other's buttons, which was really, really fun. But yeah, it all happened very quickly because I think that he was finishing the script while we first talked in February, and then come March, we were shooting it for a May 31st release date. I've never been on a set where there's a release date already.
I think that style of hearing just how quickly it was written and how quickly it was shot and how recently makes a lot of sense with just how fast and loose it feels when you watch it, right?
Yeah.
It's like everything is ripped from these fictional but headlines that don't super feel fictional. They feel super soon, and the world is kind of falling apart as these four, friends, maybe foes, are hanging out together over the weekend. It has this feeling that, echoes a bit of what was happening in Succession, as far as like, these are horrible people, but they're real people, and maybe good a little bit. Is there goodness there? I was curious about, how that felt for you, just watching Jesse's process, and the way that he works. Every actor who works with him seems to have all these stories about how different it is there and everything that you're building together. But yeah, tell me a bit about how it felt on set, creating the story, like, as the news about AI and tech is like evolving so quickly every day as you're filming.
Really interesting thing happened where I kind of actually went in and did, it's an imperceptible kind of, you would never see it. I think the film is crafted really well, but even doing a little ADR thing, because there was something that we shot that actually happened in real life. And then Jesse's so thoughtful and caring that he said, okay, let's just tweak it a bit because we don't want to make it seem like we're, taking the piss out of something that's really serious, But that's kind of how I think prescient and intuitive his writing is. And so working with him is such a reflection of that intuitiveness, because he has these really specific dialogue lines I've never seen before. Even the way that he writes, there's a staccato to it. There's different types of punctuation. There's question marks and on things that you go, wait, is that a question or is it just an inflection? And that kind of thing. And then you understand, oh, wow, he kind of has this language where you understand when it's meant to be pointed and when it's meant to be thrown away, almost from the writing. Like the writing is his first direction, in a real cool way. And then part of what was really liberating about leaning into the handheldness that they did on Succession, you do these really long takes. So you're going for 13 minutes. It doesn't matter if you mess up. Just find your way back in. And that's really liberating when you're acting. And then I also think, as someone who really liked Succession, I was inspired because I understood that he understood what worked about that, but that also the way he was doing what was happening here was so markedly different. It was just not that, and I wonder if I even have better words to say it, but it was so clear that, yeah, of course, this is the same guy who made Succession, but this is also so different. And that wasn't anywhere really in my head as I was acting it. All that there was to me was these really clear power dynamics that were discussing things that honestly intersect with what I think everyone is mulling right now, but things that I personally have been obsessed with for a really long time, especially when it comes to power dynamics and when it comes to, I write a lot about man versus system, and his version of it and his entry points to it are different than the ones that I gravitate towards as a writer. But as an actor, I was just... I was so excited to get to do that. And it all made so much sense to me the second I read it.
Yeah, since you're a writer and director, I was just I wanted to ask you a bit about how I think that like you and Jesse have similar sensibilities to a degree. Like, you're often working with more faith and culture more. He's often working with like commerce and industry. But emotionally, I feel like there's a lot tying the writing you do with what he does. Just how, these like dramas tinged with comedy and comedies tinged with drama where, you're writing about a lot of like kind of shitty people who turn around and still have so much depth to them. I was curious if there's anything you took from that experience of looking at a Jesse Armstrong script and being directed by him that you think might impact your writing and directing moving forward.
I mean, I think the gift in getting to work with him, and I felt this, I think maybe we talked about it last time when I worked with Yorgos, is like you watch someone who's really at the top of their game. And so like aspirational and inspirational.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what he's achieved in the space that he has is something that immediately being on a set of his, I understood why. I really
Mm-hmm.
understood the level of preparation he puts into it, but also the level of research. And I think a lot of what I write is researched by living. Jesse's not like any of these guys that he writes. And so it's even more impressive, the research that he's done, because, all these characters and the way that they're driven by their greed or their hunger or their ego, an honest person will see it in themselves, but he just knows way too much that it's almost as if he grew up in the culture and he didn't.
Yeah, I love that you point that out, because watching, especially Succession too, but especially Mountainhead, there's like all these guys have these such specific tics that I'm like, okay, how do you know that? Who are you hanging out with?
Yeah, it's really granular. So I was really just impressed by that. And it's just contagious being around someone and a team that is so dedicated to the idea above any individual personality. And so I think it's interesting and I felt this with Yorgos too, which is like there's this idea of the auteur that when you actually work with these guys, that idea gets demolished because you're really dealing with someone who just knows exactly what they want, but the way they use their team and the way that they are so open to collaborating and the way that they are really, there's not an ego, and I think that's exciting. And look, those guys work different from each other in a variety of ways, but if I were to kind of look at the common human thread, it feels like you're in an environment where everyone's working for the idea. And so I'm super inspired by that. It is the way that I like to work as well. But I'm also just like really humbled by seeing it happen at the level that, we made a movie at a certain speed with a certain level of sophistication. And that was something that, I loved, especially as I kind of look at hoping to do more of my own film writing and directing. That, I think there's a spaciousness outside of the grind of television. So I was joking with Jesse because I say, okay, from the outside, it's wow, how did you make a movie and only shooting 5 weeks? And then I'm kind of laughing, with this like showrunner's woe of kind of sounds pretty easy, honestly, because we're usually doing 10 episodes where there's no connection of dopamine at all. It's like you hand in a script that you put everything into and everyone goes, oh, this is great. Where's episodes 2 through 4?
Yeah.
And you're late on the outlines for 5 through 8 and we're confused as to where the season will end. It never stops.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was, we were just like, and he was like, yeah, I don't know what to do with myself. He's like, I started reading a book.
Well, I'm excited to see more of you in the film world. We saw a touch of you in the film world in your guest starring role in The Studio with a different kind of auteur in Seth Rogen, but another project that feels very tied to the headlines right now and tied to what's happening in Hollywood as opposed to in tech. But such a fun little role that you had there hosting the Golden Globes. I love that it's the Globes specifically because of your wonderful win, however many years ago that was now.
Yeah.
But are you friends with Seth? How'd that come together?
Just always a fan of his. I think we met at the AFI luncheon. We were there at AFI I think it was when we were there for Mo. And then I saw him again at some point at maybe AFI again, but got to tell him just how much I love his work, and I love what him and Evan have built. I think it's really, again, inspirational, and so it felt like a gift to get to be on their set. And the way that those guys, again, it's like I feel like I'm repeating myself, but it's so cool because you show up, and I showed up with my dog, you know, and everyone goes, "Oh, he's so cute," and whatever, and does he want to be in the show? And so then I asked my dog, and he said, "Yeah." But, you know, before I know it, Evan's in my hotel room and we're batting around ideas. And then he goes, "Okay, that sounds great." And then by the time we get downstairs, it's already written down. And I'm doing this whole bit about how there's all this pandering going on during award seasons. And then I'm playing with my dog on stage and I go, "Oh, I'm sorry, we couldn't get a dog sitter," or whatever. You know, and we're doing all these bits that we just came up with. And they so fit into the show because it's such a rock solid philosophy that we're all there working for. So they did this thing where there's so many guest stars, there's so many famous people that were there, and immediately everyone's bought in. And then you get to see all these sides of people where I go, "Oh my God, like I know Zoe. I've known Zoe for years. We've been friends." And then I watch her in this and I go, "Man, she's just so funny in this in a way that people haven't seen that particular shade."
Yeah.
She's obviously really funny on High Fidelity, but it's different when you get to come in as a guest star on something and you get to be all edge on a way, you know, in a level. And as opposed to when you're carrying a show and you play a bit more of the straight, you know, person that's carrying all that stuff. But so that's a testament to the environment, and that's a testament to the people who are running it. And so that experience was so cool and really fun to just do all that, you know, insider stuff and riff about the industry. And I just think the commentary of the entire show is pretty genius because it is that crux of art versus commerce, which has always been the Hollywood struggle. It's just got so many different shades now.
So all those jokes that you were telling as host, like, I mean, obviously part of it is just you as an actor, like the delivery, I could just hear your voice in your special from last year.
Yeah.
But so were those jokes coming from conversations you had? It was after you were set as the Golden Globes host that those kind of monologue jokes came for you, or were they written ahead of your casting?
No, Seth sent me the script and he said, we should talk about the jokes. What do you want to do?
Yeah.
And then I sent him, I think a couple of days before, I was thinking about it a bunch, and then I basically sent him, I felt so self-conscious and kind of annoying, but I sent him 7 voice notes of different bits. I said, "Okay, listen, you don't have to, I will not take any of this personally. If something sticks, just like it. You don't even need to respond. Just give me a thumbs up and I'll show up and I'll do it," you know? And so, and he was writing back and laughing, and we, you know, I had pitched him the avatar idea of just like it, you know, feeling like a GoFundMe. And I had, you know, pitched him a couple of those, which I love Avatar. I just remember feeling the pressure of I better love Avatar. And I did, you know, it delivered. But I had always, you know, joked about this premise of just, oh yeah, like, you know, if it doesn't work, we're all screwed. And so it has that energy. And so I pitched it to him as a joke, and he loved it. And so it was like that. And then, you know, Peter and a couple of these guys over there too, just tagging everything up, making everything really fun. And so it kind of felt like this really great marriage of you know, where we're, you know, that again, they kind of built the playground, and then we got to really just have fun.
I also wanted to talk about your show that is uniquely yours, as opposed to the projects you've been, you know, playing in other people's worlds with. Number One Happy Family USA. Yeah. Your first animated project. Yeah. What? Everything that I read so much about, just as soon as I watched that show, I was just like, I need to know what everybody else is thinking about it. And I loved that a lot of people were writing about Strawberries, the episode from early in Ramy, your self-titled Hulu show, where your character has this like flashback episode, and we see, you know, this version of fictional you going through like middle school or elementary school when 9/11 happens, and having to deal with what that means as an Egyptian American pubescent teenager. I felt like watching this show, I was seeing that kid's like nightmares or fever dreams, because there's a lot connecting to other material that you've made, but we also get so absurd. how long were those ideas percolating? The various things you come up with. I mean, you have George Bush showing up after becoming AOL besties with Ramy, your protagonist, and all these things that you can't really pull off in live action, but that feel connected to a lot of your work for the last, decade or whatever. So just, how long did you want to make something like this, and where did all those ideas kind of come from?
You kind of hit it. It was, I realized I had all these ideas that would never work in live action. And I think the central thing that was exciting to me was this idea that, I had the observation as a kid that and I could feel myself do it and I could feel my parents do it, was that we acted differently, not even outside the house, in the front yard than we did when we got right into the living room, right? It was just that 50 feet, 20 feet. I don't know. I'm not amazing with feet, but from that front yard into the living room, the body changes. Emotionally, you exhale and a different part of you comes out. And sometimes you got to smile when you're outside. Oh, hey, what's up, everyone? Watering your lawn. And then you get inside and you're like, oh God, like what the hell's going on in this world? And you're stressed. And I wanted to capture that. And then, and this idea of code switching is so talked about and so interesting. And I thought, well, immediately I wanted to do a show where the characters literally looked totally different when they were outside and when they were inside. We walked it back slightly because we were like, this will get confusing, but what does it look like to watch a grown Arab man, the second he crosses the threshold of his front door, his beard disappears. Curly hair that we all have immediately become straight. All those battles with the hair straightener that I watched my sister and my mother go through, a kid stuff his curls right under a hat like I always did when I was a kid and really still to this day. And so I really thought this idea would resonate with people who understood how tense it was in that era and in those years. But I also thought it was kind of an entry point and an invitation for everybody, because I think everyone does that. Everyone has this part of themselves that they go, I got to hide this now that I'm going outside. Or I got to hide this now that I'm going to work, now that I'm, in a way, it's the premise of Severance. You know what I mean? It's that thing of I got to be somebody else when I'm, not home. And I thought that was a really good invitation. And then with that being at the bedrock of it, I thought, okay, now we can get super absurd and we can get super wild and crazy and really go at this with a satire that that period of time has never really gotten from the perspective that we show. There were so many families affected in ways that were refractions of the tragedy that happened. There were so many people who were really sidelined from even having their own experience for a really long time in this country. And that time is back and even worse. And I think anyone who consciously lived through the early 2000s as an adult who is Muslim will tell you that it's worse now. And this idea of needing to prove your patriotism. It's why the show is called Number One Happy Family USA. It's this idea that you got to get out there on that front lawn and shout it to everybody in order to be deemed safe and worthy of living, worthy of living in the neighborhood. And so, all these ideas of the surveillance state and what it might mean to bend yourself, there's seeds of them in things I've done, but we never really got to look at it like this. And Strawberries was the inciting incident for going, oh, wow, look at this whole document of ideas that I generated in order to try to write that one episode. That was a moment. It was like an aha moment as I looked at all of that. And, I was talking to my partners at A24 and we said, oh my, this is almost like, these are all episodes. The 12 brainstorms to get to the one Strawberries episode is actually this whole other thing where we could look at it again through a whole different medium, work with a bunch of different writers, a bunch of different voices, and catapult something totally new. And so to actually see that vision come to life, after all these years is it's really surreal.
So Strawberries was something of like a backdoor pilot for this.
In a way. Yeah. Yeah. In a way. And that, that the surrealism there obviously goes to levels that are way crazier in this one. Yeah.
As you were talking about how things feel worse, even worse now than they did in 2001, 2002, I'm reminded of conversations I had with you and with Mo Amer around the release of season 2 of Mo, which was the end of January of this year. And this kind of tension and pressure of having this show that puts a Palestinian man, in the lead role, which we don't have anywhere else, and then feeling like you have to address this whole world of things people think about Palestinians now that are different from even when season 1 came out a couple of years ago. And then just kind of saying whatever to that pressure and deciding not to address the war, which I remember both you and Mo telling me that a big concern when making that decision was that, we're writing this months before we shoot it, months before it comes out, and you don't want the world to change and make, produce something outdated by the time the show comes out. And that was kind of very much proven. I think there was this, ceasefire deal that was announced a few days, I think, before season 2 came out in the war in Gaza that then, has not really held as of March. So how has that process, how have you been reflecting on it in the months since the season came out and, about a year since you made it? I have to imagine it's been, just a very interesting project to kind of watch and rewatch and rethink about through the different lenses of what's been happening over the last, 2 years now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really proud of it, and I'm proud that we got to do it. I mean, and I think pulling off all these shows at the same time was obviously, I don't think it's something I'll ever really go through in the same way as intimately as I did, because, I think we were writing, Mo and I, we wrote that pilot and a bunch of those episodes while simultaneously with Ramy season 2. And then I think part of the animated process was also happening simultaneously with Ramy season 3. And then also going into Mo season 2, so there's all these things kind of happening at once. What was helpful about them happening at once is I was able to have a really conscious stream of going, this idea totally belongs here. This idea totally belongs here. It belongs there. That was really cool for me. And I think, again, we work with different writers on everything. So, further debunking the authorship of anything, right? I'm so inspired by all the people that we got to work with on each project. So you get to look at a show like Mo, which, Ramy's so internal and it's so, who am I philosophically? With Mo, we kind of really looked at man versus system in a very, I would say, and I mean this in a good way, on the nose kind of way. You're watching him literally go through these courts and watching him go through these double standards and all the wordplay and all these weird things. And Mo's so good at playing the frustration of those things that so many people have. So it's really fun to do that thing in that way. And then, you said it. It's, I felt compelled, this thing has to exist because there is no humanization of not just Palestinians, but even refugees. This isn't something that people think refugee and they kind of see a random CNN image of people displaced on a boat near a shore. And those images need to be tethered to real families and real stories and things that you can understand, because if they aren't, then it's almost completely disorienting how you could process anything that's happening. And so I don't, whether the work is all I can say for any of the work that I tend to gravitate towards, and this brings in Mountainhead too, is hopefully it's providing just a little bit more context and bringing a heartbeat into things that seem really devoid of I would say love, because that's the disastrous thing about headlines is there is no love in them. And I think when we get to make these things and work on these things, or I get to act in something, we're bringing in actually some love. We're bringing in a heartbeat. And not to say that you should love the tech billionaires in Mountainhead. That's not what I'm talking about. But it's that actually the viewer can get to look at it from a different vantage point in order to help process it, like from a more heart-centered kind of space. And so to get to do that with a Palestinian family in the midst of what's happening and what continues to happen, as of May, and is I'm really proud of it. I mean, even especially the second season. I mean, I think everything that happened between the first season and the second season, our calculation to not cover it one for the headlines is one that I make in stand-up all the time. Stand-up's always such a good teacher. On an immediate level, you kind of know what could work in a script because you heard a room of people laugh at it. But the other thing is always when you're making a special, you go, if I talk about something in the news, is it going to hold up? Mm-hmm. If someone watches my special back in 10 years, because I love watching old specials. Pop on an old Eddie Murphy, pop on an old George Carlin. Carlin's great at this because you can watch him talk. He'll talk really topically about the time, but it always has this core emotional thing that's actually the bedrock of the joke. So it doesn't matter. I don't know the senator he's talking about from, the 90s, but I know exactly what he's feeling. And we bring that here, in everything that we do. We go, okay, yeah, it isn't this kind of power dynamic, between the stateless and, occupying, entities that are not looking at people, as people. We've been watching this for a very long time play out. And so now, what is the best story that we can tell about a refugee who found himself in Texas? Mm-hmm. What are the best characters we can show so that we can bring a beating heart to these headlines? And that's always the job, because that's all we're qualified to do at the same time too, right? And so, from here, sitting here and being here now with it as it continues, it's nice to feel that there is that timelessness there. Mm-hmm. And that's why we, wrote it the way that we did.
Yeah. I think that idea is such a fruitful way to connect all four of the projects that you're working on right now. And people should get excited to continue hearing you think through all that now that you're on tour.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, yeah. I should be saying that more. I'm on tour. I do. My stand-up guys always tell people you're doing stand-up. I am doing stand-up.
Ramy, always a pleasure.
Oh,
I assume that when we do the podcast, again, a year from now, you'll have 6 projects since last time it was 3 and now it's 4.
It's either that or I'll have a baby.
Okay.
If I have
a baby
if
is
we have
6
a
projects.
baby, could we do a podcast? Because I won't do any project. Could we just have a podcast where I talk to you about my baby?
Yes, we will unpack the baby. We'll do a postmortem interview on
could we just do an FYC for my baby?
FYC, Ramy's baby. We'll do, know.
And there'll be no project. It won't be attached to a project.
No. Just
I'll
the
just
baby.
be home with my wife and the baby.
Yeah, I think a baby is Emmy worthy. They should definitely make an Emmy for babies.
I think that's why I really came today.
Right.
Emmy for babies.
That's Ramy Youssef, star of Mountainhead, guest star in the studio, executive producer of Mo and #1 Happy Family USA, and maybe eventually the co-creator of A Baby. After the break, actor Forrest Whitaker. From Los Angeles, this is the Variety Award Circuit Podcast. And we're back. It's the Variety Award Circuit Podcast. I'm Michael Schneider. MGM Plus's Godfather of Harlem picked up in Season 4 with Bumpy Johnson, played by Forrest Whitaker, as he continued his bloody war for control of Harlem against New York's mafia families, while contending with the emergence of a potential rival in newly arrived black gangster Frank Lucas.
Harlem is in shambles.
I don't deal in junk no more. I was trying to build something for my people.
The new Harlem. My husband is becoming the man Malcolm inspired him to be.
The future of Harlem rests in your hands. There's a kid in town. Country boy looking to make a name for himself.
Who are you? My name's Frank Lucas.
Variety's Clayton Davis spoke to Whitaker at a Godfather of Harlem screening this spring, and he began by asking Whitaker if he planned to direct any of his projects again anytime soon.
I think that I've been nervous to break the focus of what I was doing in my acting and the directing, so I don't foresee it really. I do foresee directing again in the future, but I'm not quite sure if I'm going to pollute my performance by thinking about too many things when I'm trying to do it.
So it's a maybe. All right, got it. This season, we're getting Frank Lucas. anyone's seen the film American Gangster, you are familiar with Mr. Denzel Washington. You may have heard of him. He's a good up-and-comer in this business. What would it like to have Frank Lucas now a part of this season in a substantial way?
Like his youth and enthusiasm has been amazing. I think he's a real strong artist. We've had some work done. We've done some work together this season, and he's really been really powerful. And I think he's going to continue to help the show like expand itself. You know.
At the beginning of this episode, we get a recap, and there's some big events that took place last season. What can you share without spoiling anything for the audience? What can the audience expect from this season of Godfather of Harlem? What else does Bumpy have up his sleeve?
I mean, he's always in pursuit of like a position of power, meaning that he's at odds with a number of people with the mob families and also new people who've come into his replacements of characters. I can't say a lot because I think I don't want to spoil it, but I think you're in for some really exciting times. I think it's really one of our strongest seasons, and so I think you're going to get a chance to see some, not just action, but some revelations with the family and new groups, Panthers and others coming up. It's going to be an exciting time.
Samuel L. Jackson comes at the end of the season, guys. He says he's assembling a team and sets up some good future movies. What I love about this season in particular, and what I've loved every season about Godfather of Harlem, there is a really strong voice for Black women in this world. They're not passive. They're speaking up. They're yelling and doing what they have to do. Is that something that was always, did it need to be advocated for, or was something that happened naturally with the cast that you have?
I mean, it's something that I think Chris and I have spoken about, and the other producers, and the actresses are so powerful, you know, in every way. And they grow each season. I think they've grown further and further. Mamie or Ilfanesh has like tried to take control of a different realm, a different world in the art circuits. And, my daughter has like chosen to reach out and join other vigilante groups or other groups to be able to like fight back for the difficulties and discrimination that's happening during the time. And even I think Stella becomes very, very pivotal and important in the mob world. It's something that still remains to be seen. But it's something that's really a point that we wanted to do, and ladies are really important to the success of the show and also to like the fullness of the show. So that's what's happened from the writing staff, and they've done an amazing job, I think, with that.
I want to ask you, you spoke earlier about acting and being focused, and lack of a better term, you still got it. Like you're great. Like you're going to be great forever. But on this show, and I don't know if anyone else feels this way, when I'm watching you really dig into a scene, when it's over, I'm like exhausted for you. Like I'm tired. Like I feel like you just did so much. Like me trying to like go for a run on a treadmill. So like, do you feel that as well when you're doing a scene, when it's over, do you feel like you just gave more physicality in that with just speaking than maybe it lets on?
Yeah, sometimes I feel like I've given it over as much as I can. I try to do that. I think that's part of the passion that like I'm able to keeps me being able to do the work, and it's continuing that way. And hopefully when I can't do it that way, I won't be doing it at all.
It's a very serious show, a lot of drama, but I keep hearing this rumor that you guys are having so much fun on set. So I want to know, when is a lot of the fun and laughs happening? Is it in between takes? I mean, what kind of set does Forrest Whitaker run?
I'm part of the actors. I mean, I think the set itself, it responds to like the great artists that we have inside the show, and they all like get along. We don't have any problems with our artists getting along with each other or staff or problems. It's just everybody trying to like do something great together. And it's been that way from the beginning and continues to be that way now. And I think it's going to be that way tomorrow.
you can clap, that's fine. Yeah. If you get the inkling, you just do it. My final question to you, and you're going to allow the audience to gush over you for a minute. But again, when you think of a great Forest Whitaker performance, when you know you have a great actor, is because we all disagree on what that best performance is. We have active arguments about it. So some people will say, Ghost Dog. Some people say The Crying Game. Some people say Last King of Scotland. There's dozens of others to choose from. When you look over your career, what does this moment, what do you think about when you look over 4 decades in this business? For more than 4 decades. What do you reflect on?
I think I've been reflecting on whether or not I've done what I want to do in this area. I've had great opportunities to play amazing characters. And now it may be time to move into different types of art. So I reflect on that. When's the right time? I want to change sort of my focus.
Just to be clear, I want to make sure this isn't a retirement announcement that's happening before our eyes. That's not what you meant, right? You're still
acting right now. But there's a lot of ways to express yourself. I've directed, I've produced, I've worked in music. I think I just have to see what the next phase is. I'm trying to always grow. And I have to see how I'm growing and the best way for me to be able to grow. And hopefully I'll keep contributing to not just the dialogue, but to the zeitgeist of our culture.
Awesome. And just for the last row to know this, how many more seasons do we have of this? How long do you want to keep it going?
I think this show can go on. Obviously, there's an exit point for me because my character does pass away. He's a real character. He dies. At some point.
Spoiler alert.
I think that with people like Rome and the guys like Il Panesh, and with this kind of cast, go on for, I don't know, I wouldn't say forever, but definitely I wouldn't give an end date on that because they're really great artists. They're really great actors. Chaz Palminteri does some great work with us too. It can go on for good.
We can Grey's Anatomy this. We can just go on for as long. Listen, we could turn this into The Pit and just be one whole day, all season. It'd be awesome. This is the writer's room right now. We're talking about it. We're doing it. Okay. Well, Sir Forrest, don't ever retire. Don't ever stop. You can do whatever art you want, but you just can't stop acting or directing. I humbly request this.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, one more time, Forrest Whitaker.
That's Forrest Whitaker, star of MGM Plus's Godfather of Harlem, which recently returned for season 4. And that's it for this edition of Variety's Award Circuit Podcast. Michael Schneider is the producer and Aaron Greenewald is the editor. Be sure to subscribe to the Award Circuit Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you download podcasts. Also, head on over to Variety.com and click on the Award Circuit tab to find the latest awards predictions and key races, as well as your daily fix of news, analysis, and reviews. For Jazz Tanke, Emily Longaretta, and Clayton Davis, I'm Michael Schneider, and we'll see you on the circuit.